Okay, if you could state your name so that way I know who
Sure.
I'm interviewing.
It's Jim Dorenkott.
Okay. Basically, since I'm a 9/11 Truth activist, first and foremost, I'm going to ask that question with respect to the perception that I guess Ralph Nader's campaign has about the attacks of September 11th. You know, for example, Ron Paul has this idea of blowback, so does Barack Obama. And then, of course, you've got McCain, who thinks it's the official conspiracy theory, 19 Arab Muslim hijackers and whatnot. What is Ralph Nader's platform propose? That it was blowback, or that it's the official conspiracy theory, or maybe that he has a little bit of 9/11 truth mixed in?
Well, I'm not actually sure what Ralph Nader's platform is, but I do know that he signed a statement that's on the web that's been signed by a lot of people. I guess something like 140 elected officials and judges, another 100 and some odd entertainers. I think there's 3 or 4 categories. And that statement says there definitely should be an investigation because the 9/11 Commission was not adequate. It did not look at very important evidence that needs to be considered. There were very important people not interviewed. So in many ways it resembles the Kennedy Assassination Commission in that they have not really searched for the truth. They tried to put together a report that would not upset the status quo for the Bush administration. So on a lot of levels it really needs to be looked into. And I know that Ralph signed that, and I saw his name there, and along with a lot of other people, Ron Paul, etc.
Okay, great. I guess another question is and of course this is a Ron Paul issue, but it's one that concerns many people as well. The issue of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, how it's an unapportioned tax. It's unconstitutional, although it's been made legal. Is there any, plans, I guess, on Ralph Nader's part to repeal it, or any plans to sort of get around it and make it to where it doesn't have the impact that it does on society?
Here I'm actually not sure what Ralph Nader's position is. So I know that the Federal Reserve, being privately owned and not subject to any congressional oversight, has to be included in the continuum of corporate abuse and theft, so that there should be some closer correlation between what Congress oversees and approves of the Federal Reserve, rather than having it have this complete autonomous situation where they're only answerable to the giant corporations who they really fundamentally serve.
Okay. Now, this is a big issue down here, although not a lot of people are paying attention to it the way that they should, or in the way they should, particularly the North American Union and the precursor to that, which is the Trans-Texas Corridor, or the NAFTA Superhighway.
Right.
Are you aware of whether or not Ralph Nader's platform in any way addresses that particular problem, which no candidate seems to be addressing except Ron Paul?
Well, actually, Ralph Nader does speak much more about that. And it's definitely part of the, again, the corporate abuse now at the international level. And, the theme of globalization, which probably came to the public consciousness in the WTO demonstrations in Seattle in 1999, when a lot of us, myself included, became aware that in the 20 years preceding, the corporate powers have been putting together this infrastructure. Frankly, that was a time when we were on the edge of nuclear annihilation because of the nuclear arms race. And a lot of the people that I was associated with were busy trying to get the Soviet Union and the United States to sit down and start negotiating. Behind our backs, they were putting this infrastructure together. So we have continuously been playing catch up. And NAFTA was unfortunately sneaked through before there was a good opportunity to examine its consequences. It's been really bad for the American workers who've had their jobs taken overseas. It's been really bad for the Mexican workers who have not seen an increase in their working standards, in their environmental and health and safety. These were all left out of the agreement. These are things that Ralph Nader stands very strongly for, which is a healthy environment. I mean, those were his signature legislative and regulation moves while in Congress, while testifying before Congress, while working with those folks. And also the concern about the well-being of workers around the world, because if workers around the world are getting paid decent salaries, then they're not going to be coming into our country to look for work. And so it's very connected. And the Nader campaign definitely talks about that connection.
But to be more specific, I guess, to the point, is Nader a globalist, or is he believes in our sovereignty and he wants to maintain our borders and doesn't want some things like NAFTA and CAFTA and the North American Union, if ever comes to be, to interfere with that? What is his position?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, in terms of sovereignty, that's extremely important. And the onerous part of the World Trade Organization is that they allow a corporation to sue a country because their environmental or health and safety laws protect the people and protect the workers, and they can sue that country and say that this is making our ability to make a profit harder, and so you now have to change your laws to be more favorable to the corporations, destroy the environment, cut back on workers' protections in order for this company to make a profit, and the court can rule that this company that is quote-unquote being abused by this country's concern for its people, they're entitled to not just damages, they're entitled to imagined profits that would have accrued to them. This is historically unprecedented and an amazing attack on sovereignty, where a country cannot decide we want to live under these circumstances and we're forced to change that because this corporation wants to make more money.
Okay. In regards to our occupation of Iraq, I assume that Ralph Nader is in favor of pulling out. If not, correct me, please. But what I want to know is, well, first of all, is that correct? He does not want to stay in Iraq. He wants to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But is he in favor? I'm sorry. I was going to continue. I was going to say, is he in favor of pulling out of all other countries, and which we were probably illegally occupying as well, or is he just to focus on Iraq and perhaps Afghanistan that you know of?
Well, I don't know for sure again, but I mean, speaking for myself, I'm in favor of the United States occupation forces in all countries pulling back, pulling out. They have no business being there. We should set up international or regional forces if there needs to be some policing and supervision. But it's not the business of the United States to be the policeman of the world. And I think that the money being wasted, the trillions of dollars being wasted by the corporate fraud and abuse in those operations, in addition to just the toll on humanity, in terms of what you started talking about, blowback, it comes back to haunt the United States in one fashion or another at some point. So it's definitely not good policy.
Okay, my last question is just in regards to the AIDS crisis. Do they have any specific ideas about how to tackle that particular problem? I have two friends that are HIV positive, so of course,
Sure.
It affects everybody, in my opinion, not just me.
Again, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have to think that Ralph would be in favor of having affordable AIDS medicine. He has talked in numerous talks about the discrepancy between buying AIDS medicine here in the United States and in some of the less developed part of the world. He's also talked about the fact that the U.S. corporations and other multinational corporations who produce AIDS medicine, preventing some of these countries from developing their own generic form, and he's opposed to that not to their developing that, but to the restrictions and the interference with people being able to do that to take care of their people.
Okay. I think that's all for now.
Okay.
Maybe later I'll have a few more.
Okay. All right.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.